Come back. The Congressional Budget Office says it could take a decade before the U.S. economy returns to where it was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. But this week, one Los Angeles-based economic forecast painted a much different picture, that a full recovery will take place next year. The author of the forecast, economist Christopher Thornberg of Beacon Economics. So, Mr. Thornberg, you believe we will have a V recovery. Why?
Well, first of all, it's not a function of if we're going to have a V recovery. We've already had a V recovery. Look, right now, the data suggests that we're lining up for somewhere between a 30 to 35% growth rate in the third quarter of the year. And that's just based on information we already have on retail sales and consumer spending and everything else. Now, that doesn't mean a complete recovery, but it puts us a heck of a lot closer to trend line than a lot of folks were imagining. So it isn't, like I said, a function of whether we think there's going to be a V. The V is already in place. There's no doubt about it. Now, why do we talk about a fast recovery? Look, when you think about the Great Recession, you've got to remember that the Great Recession had such a terrible impact because of what happened ahead of time. For 6 years, the U.S. economy had been vastly overheated by, of course, the subprime lending bubble that had overcharged so many different parts of the economy. When that thing collapsed, demand in various parts of the economy collapsed permanently. And that caused a massive restructuring of the U.S. economy as well as the U.S. labor markets. And that took close to a decade to heal from. This time around, while this is a serious situation, it hit an economy that was fundamentally healthy. There is no permanent shifts in demand at this particular point in time. What that says is once you get control over the virus, this economy gets back to normality very, very rapidly. Now, some would argue that while the virus is here, while parts of the economy are closed down, there is damage occurring, and that will slow recovery down. And I agree with that. But that is being offset by what I would call almost excessive government stimulus. For every dollar of lost personal income from February to June, the federal government has put back $2. Amazingly, stimulus has been so generous, so overwhelming, that personal incomes have been rising through this. And of course, with the stock market bouncing back, with home prices actually accelerating, you have a situation where wealth levels are exploding right now. There is over $2 trillion in new cash in the commercial banking system in the United States. That is dry power that will fuel the recovery once we get the virus under control. So with that in mind, it's all about the virus. It's not about the economy.
So this is based then on a vaccine being available relatively soon.
Well, I'm actually even going to push back on that. You know, one of the things that's amazing to me, right? Everybody's talking about the slowing recovery. There hasn't been a slowing recovery. We had a second surge of cases in the United States. A second surge that, by the way, was larger than the first one that peaked in July. What's amazing about the numbers over the last couple of months, you remember, the first time we had a surge in April, we saw the greatest decline in consumer spending we've ever seen. The second surge, which was larger, the most you could say was that the recovery slowed a little bit. You're talking about an economy that is mitigated, that has figured out how to deal with this virus. You saw it right there. Now, the number of new cases are coming down. They're coming down in California. They're coming down in the United States and Arizona and Texas. It seems as if, yet again, we're over the hump. And as long as people continue to wear their masks, we have effective tracing systems, there should be no reason that even with the virus still here, even without a vaccine, we shouldn't be able to get back up and running for the most part by October or November of this year.
Okay. Finally, has the nature of work changed? We've seen great productivity from those now working from home. Companies have learned that they don't need the office space in places like downtown LA anymore.
Yeah, I do think some lessons have been learned here. And yeah, I think employers will be comfortable letting people work from home more often than they do right now. Now, that isn't going to say that offices are going to become passé. There's a couple other things we've learned as well. For example, you still need offices for training. The collaborative efforts that go on when people are face-to-face sitting around a conference table are much more effective than they are in a Zoom call. They just are. So offices aren't going to go away. What I think is going to happen is you are going to see a shrinking footprint over the course of the next few years, as yes, employers are more comfortable letting people work from home 2 or 3 days a week. Now, the other part of it is this. For somebody like myself, my folks, of course, have been working from home for the last few months. Most of my folks are desperate to come back into the office. They are sick of working in their home. It's been a lesson for everybody. Employers are learning, yeah, people can work from home, and employees are learning working from home all the time isn't a lot of fun. I want to see my coworkers. I want to go out to lunch. I want to have, of course, the experiences of that face-to-face interaction that working in a workplace with people I enjoy provides to me. So I think that's going to be a slow change, but certainly not a dramatic one. Again, as soon as we get this virus under control, as soon as the governor releases some of these restrictions, my guess is a lot of people are going to flock back to those offices, and that will get that downtown and those business districts operating again relatively efficiently.
Christopher Thornberg, founding partner of Beacon Economics. Thanks for taking the time. Hope you're right.
The data would say I am. So we'll leave it at that.
NBC4's News Conference program is preempted this week. That program will return October the 4th. Meet the Press is at the top of the hour. I'm Conan Nolan. Have a great Sunday.